Welcome into the Viva Albertos podcast. As always, I am your host, Jake Wood, and I am joined this week by fellow writer Gabe Simons, former Indie League sensation and podcast extraordinaire Scott Plaza, live from Atlanta, Georgia. This week, we are joined by our last special guest for the month of April, having been joined by Kevin Wheeler, Matt Pauley, and the Hall of Famer Bernie Miklasz. And much like Thanos in the Avengers saga, my Gashouse Gang Affinity Gauntlet is now complete with today's appearance by 1120 KMOX sports director, host of Total Information AM Sports on a Sunday Morning, and the Gashouse Gang, Tom Ackermann. Tom, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you. And, I'm excited to talk some Cardinals baseball with one of the most plugged-in voices in Cardinals Nation. Appreciate you taking some time to join us tonight.
Well, thank you very much. I guess you got to get Chris Ranji in there, too, huh?
Okay. Yeah, he was a late addition. I'm talking about the original core four.
You got it right. You nailed it, the OG group. And, we've got a good group right there. I mean, you're talking about three great guys right there. Matt Pauley and Kevin Wheeler and I are on a text thread where we talk Cardinals every day, and Bernie is like my older brother, who I've known since I broke into the business almost 30 years ago. So that's a heck of a group, man. I am thrilled to follow them. It's great to be with you.
And follow them you shall. So let's start this off. You spoke with Chaim Bloom this morning, as you do every Sunday on the aforementioned Sports on a Sunday Morning show, covering a wide range of topics as you always do. And it's obviously different than the countless conversations that you had with John Mozeliak over the years. My first question for you is, what has it been like for you getting to know the new Cardinals decision maker, Chaim Bloom?
He's very good. I think he's been great to work with, very open, transparent. I think both on and off the record, he's been really nice to get to know. I like to tell the story about the first time that I met Chaim was actually at a gathering in Jupiter, where a lot of the Cardinals front office ownership, every year they have a dinner to kind of kick off the season. And I was invited to go to this, so I'm standing there and somebody said, "Have you met Chaim yet?" Now, Chaim had just been hired as an advisor, and this was 2024, before that season started. And I chatted with him, and we must have talked for 10, 15 minutes standing there at the bar, just kind of chatting for a while, to the point where somebody was like, "Guys, we got dinner." and I just... it was cool, talking ball with him, but also he really was picking my brain on the Cardinals fan base, on St. Louis as a market. He had a lot of knowledge. I would describe him, and there were other times during spring training where I chatted with him at the Jupiter complex at Roger Dean, where I just felt like he was very interested in what I had to say. I had a lot of questions for him, and this is before we ever did an on-the-record interview, where, he was picking my brain and I was doing the same, and I respected that a lot. And he's the type of person where he really locks in on you, and I think you can feel that in the interviews we do on KMOX, where he really does make it feel like it's an important time for him, and he respects the time very much, and he wants to pass along information. John Mozeliak, I've known for a long time. I mean, I've known Mo since I broke in. He came in with the Cardinals 2 years before me. So a different type of relationship where we could kind of have a little fun with each other, occasionally jab each other. He knew that I was going to hit him with some questions. He was going to come back with answers. And I had known him for a long, long time. What I'm impressed with Chaim is I've not known him a long time, and he's adapted to it very quickly. So he obviously has had, you could tell, the media training that he's had through the years with the Rays, with the Red Sox. He's kind of seen it all. And so to come back to St. Louis and get started here, I think has been refreshing for him, is what I gather.
From your talks with Oli and Bloom, do you have any idea why the Cardinals don't utilize a Memphis shuttle with their bullpen more often? Because it doesn't feel like there's as much movement as they could be having, especially after a day like Saturday.
I would agree with that. I do think that, on Saturday they had 8 pitchers, including Libby. Not all of them went deep. Some of them were in single digits in terms of pitches, but a lot of them were 15 or more. 8 is 8. I mean, it is what it is. So I was curious if they were going to do something today. I do feel like they want to have these pitchers work their way through what they're dealing with. Unless there's something nagging them or something glaring, I think they want to work through it. It does bear watching, though, in the future. I, I talked to Bernie about this morning, and one thing we both talked about is what else do they have? I mean, how deep could they really go, especially in terms of starters? Now, Hunter Dobbins is going to get a start against the Pirates, and that's a good thing. I think just to get a fresh arm in there and somebody new for us to watch. But outside of that, I don't know in the bullpen how much they can really do, but it does bear watching. I mean, they've got to be able to do. They can't keep doing the same thing over and over if they feel like it's going to set them back. But this is a rebuild. I mean, this is what it is. I mean, this is not a team, in my estimation, I'm not going to speak for them, but in my estimation, this is not a team that's going to try to go win the World Series. I mean, they're a team that is trying to build themselves for 27 and especially 28 to try to go win it all then. So they're out there to see what they have, and I feel like there's a group that is on its way, but just not ready yet between this major league team and, let's say, single A, double A.
Understanding it's a rebuild, and really the bullpen losing games is the best case scenario for this team. Like, your offense and your starters give you a chance to win, and then your bullpen loses it, and then you get the draft pick at the end. But, and the reality is the bullpen has been struggling. Is there any reason, or like why would they want to go like someone like Jordan Romano who just got DFA'd? Like, would that be somebody that they could take a flyer on in hopes, let's try to catch lightning in a bottle and flip him and just try to kind of run through that thing? Because you don't really want your guys in Memphis to, like, you're not looking for future bullpen arms, right? Like, you're looking for future starters. So is that something that you could see them trying to do in the near term just to save this group for a minute?
I would be in favor of that. And I don't know if they want to do that or not. I wish I would have asked Chaim about that today. Had they run into more problems, would they be willing to go out and get somebody? And I think I know what his answer would be, is that I always feel like they're kind of a step ahead of us in that they've looked and they canvass everything. They know who is kind of on the bubble out there or who could be available out there and what they might be able to swing. But yes, I would be in favor of going outside if it gets to that, to bring some people in, not just one, but multiple if you can, just to save this thing. Now, they think that the Ryan Staniks of the world and some of the other pitchers that we've seen through the years in Major League Baseball are going to correct themselves and that things are going to be okay there. I think what you don't want to do is send somebody out who's a little younger and untested and let them get out there and get pummeled over and over. If you're a major leaguer and you've kind of been through the battles, I think they're willing to give you a little more time. So this being April 26th, talk to me in about a week or two and I might have a different answer. But I do think that right now I would be in favor of at least canvassing Major League Baseball and to see what's out there. What can that really hurt you if you go out there and try to find somebody that can plug the hole for a little while?
Speaking of Ryan Stanek, we have, Ryan Stanek's number one fan in the room, Gabe Simons. Gabe also referenced, your weekly Tuesday spot at noon with manager Oliver Marmol, to which I do not miss. I listen every single week, and I've truthfully learned so much about his decision-making, and his personality works really well in that setting as well, which was something that, was really refreshing. You guys talk about it a lot. It's like, fans only get to see if they only go off of the 4 or 5 minutes after a game, and he's pissed off, that's all they're gonna know about him. So my question was, who came up with the idea of having him on weekly, and what have you personally learned about Oli in the last year plus since starting these weekly chats with him?
What's interesting is it really started with Tony La Russa on Sports on a Sunday Morning, where we went to Tony and Tony agreed to take phone calls from fans. And he didn't care what the topic was. He just said, let's just go. And I found that pretty incredible, actually. That doesn't happen today. Maybe we'll bring that up to Oli and see if he wants to do it. But Tony was taking calls from fans back in the day. And that was good. And I think people kind of understood him a little bit better. His book, Three Nights in August, also, I thought, sort of allowed people to understand him a little bit better. Then Mike Matheny took over, and when he was the manager, we still did it, but we didn't do as many calls. We just, I would ask questions and we would get down to it. With Mike Schilt, he might have been a little more open to taking a call or two, but it was kind of the same format as Matheny. All of them are really good about understanding that we were going to ask questions that fans wanted to ask. And we were going to be very to the point. We're going to try to get through as many as possible because our time is limited. And I thought they were always good. I mean, they all had pushback on me. I mean, Tony, I did not host Sports on a Sunday morning at the time, but I covered Tony on a daily basis. I could tell you stories for hours about the times that he and I went back and forth. Matheny, Schilt, loved them and working with them. But sure, there were times where they were like, why are you second guessing me right now? I'm like, because it's baseball. This is what we do. And we went back and forth on things. Oli Marmol is a very proud, good human being. He will absolutely, he invites going back and forth with you, just like the others I thought eventually warmed up to. Tony definitely did. So Oli did Sundays with me. And then there was a point where we had to shorten the segments a little bit. We did Sunday and we did Wednesday. And we came to the conclusion that while those were both good, they didn't allow him to really expand. They were very quick. I would ask the things that had to be asked. We'd get through the segment and then it would be over. And we talked, this was the spring of 25, and he said, I'd like to revisit how we do it. And what we decided on is let's go a little longer with the segment, and let's see if we can't add a few people to the mix and make a roundtable out of it. And we decided, because we were developing this online show called the Gas House Gang, where we would sit around and kick around baseball topics, would you be willing to do the Gas House Gang with us? We're going to move it to KMOX Air, and we're going to do it every day at noon. We'll pick a day. Does Tuesday work for you? And we'll do a half hour with you. And he said yes. And I don't think people realize that he is on the inside like we are. So he's on the StreamYard, and he can see all the comments coming in at him before we put them up on the screen. So he can see, like, Ollie sucks. They should have hired Yachty. Get this bozo out of here. He sees all of it. And I can see him sometimes, and he takes it all in stride. And he understands the position that he's in. I think he's grown a thick skin over the last 4, now 5 years as manager. I think he's in a really good place as manager under this regime. And I think he's very confident that the direction he's going is in a good one. So he wants the opportunity to talk in depth about those things. And I think it's been really good for him. And quite honestly, it's been great for the listeners. I mean, KMOX listeners love that stuff, man. They can't get enough of it.
I have to ask about Jordan Walker, who ended his streak of 2 strikeouts. I think he had 8 straight games with that. How worried would you say you are about Jordan Walker right now long term? Or do you think his big home run was really, really fluky? Or do you think it's kind of a push and pull thing happening right now where he'll come back and start homering again or not striking out as much?
Sure, yeah. I mean, best pitchers and pitching coaches in the world, I mean, they're going to find your cold spots and your weak spots. There's no doubt about that. So it's just part of baseball where nobody can stay hot like that. I mean, 8 home runs in that short amount of time was just insane. I go back to the Gas House Gang with Oli, where Oli said, I want to bring Brant Brown on the show. And I don't know if I'm sure you remember it, and because it actually made it out pretty big, where Brant and Oli both talked about questioning Jordan's preparation and what he was doing to get himself in a good spot. That's gone now. I mean, he is absolutely respected for the work that he's done. They've made a point that he puts a lot of work in, and they are all admiring the fact his maturation process and all that he's done to get to this point. So what they think is that was the result of hard work. He did work, really got into a routine and understood how to read pitches, how to understand pitches better, how to lay off those low and outside pitches, wait for his pitch. And boy, if you threw one down the middle or anywhere near it, he was going to hit that ball a mile. Now I think pitchers are starting to work him a little bit. They're changing locations and eye level and speeds. And he's going to be dealing with a lot of that, and we'll have to readjust again. So probably we'll have to go through another period of really bearing down, and this will be like any hitter will tell you, this is how a baseball career goes. It's very hard to be, Albert Pujols or Aaron Judge. I mean, you've got to be an exceptional talent, and Jordan is one of those athletes that I think has developed into, I think, a good hitter and fielder. I mean, he can be great. I think he's good. And I think that April got off to a hot start, and I think it was a lot of fun to watch. But there will be a period of time where he's just going to have to go through slumps, and we're seeing one right now with him.
I'm going to stick in the outfield, unfortunately, and talk about Victor Scott the second. And I'm just going to first ask you the question and then kind of build back to it. It's like, what is the plan or what is the approach with the offense? Because so far, he's approaching 70 at bats. He's still waiting for his first barrel. A bunt hits the barrel, doesn't count. And he still doesn't have enough. He still doesn't have enough swings to even qualify for bat speed on Baseball Savant. And we heard all about his reworked swing with the Voodoo Witch Doctor and all that stuff. And he has 3 stolen bases, and 2 of them came on opening day, I believe. I've compared him to Raisin Cane's, where if all you're going to do is chicken, then that better be the best damn chicken I've ever had, and it's not. If you're going to be the fastest person in the major leagues, you better be the best base runner and everything, and he's not. He's a negative base running value person right now, and his best asset is his speed and the bunting with runners in scoring position and all that stuff. Like, what is his plan, or what do they have for his plan? Is the bunting his own thing, or what's going on at the plate with Vic?
Well, let me say this. Canes is pretty damn good, although I think you're in Georgia, so you probably have some good options down there, is what I understand. Isn't that right? You're in Georgia?
I'm stuck in Georgia with my high school students right now.
So you have some good options on chicken down there, so I will give you that. But Vic is not hitting the ball out of the infield. He's not getting barrels. He's an elite outfielder who can't get on base. And if you don't get on base, you're not going to get steals and you're not going to be effective. And the Cardinals absolutely need somebody to get on base in front of J.J. Weatherholt. I mean, J.J. Weatherholt can rake. He's going to hit Herrera, for that matter. We don't want to see them hit solo home runs. We want to see them drive in 2, 3 at a time. The way this is trending for me now is that when Lars Nootbaar comes back, Nathan Church is going to be your starting center fielder. I mean, I don't see any other way around it. I mean, if you can't hit, then you can't hit. And Nathan Church is hitting. Hit another one today and is developing into an all-around very good player, both in the outfield, at the plate, on the bases. Love Victor Scott II. I thought if you listen to Chaim today, he didn't really go into detail on what Vic is working on, but the fact that he took Friday off and was working behind the scenes on his offense was certainly a point that was made. I appreciate that, but certainly at this point you want to see results, and they are what they are. And you root for Victor Scott II. He's one of the great guys, and he's a dynamic player, and when he's on, he can be a lot of fun. But right now you're just not seeing the offense, and that's a shame. So if Lars is healthy and on track and can be back in left field, I think you have to put Nathan Church in center field. Jordan Walker's your right fielder. Vic has the opportunity to be an excellent defensive replacement and work his way back into the mix as the starting center fielder.
Kind of zooming out, Tom, the Cardinals have dropped 5 of their last 6 and, are now just 1 game over 500 and tied for last place with the Milwaukee Brewers. I don't know if any one of us coming into the season would have said on April 26th that all 5 teams would be over 500 in the National League Central. And, as fun as this first month of the season has been, it seems as though the Cardinals are starting to come back to earth a little bit, kind of like you've referenced. We talked a little bit about this, before the show started. And that's not to say that, they are diminished as a product in any way, because they're fun as hell to watch, but perhaps the rest of the league is starting to find that next gear in the season, and some of the deeper teams in terms of depth, are going to start separating themselves from the rest of the pack. With the team headed to Pittsburgh for a short road trip and kind of in the midst of a really challenging stretch of games, frankly, for any team in baseball, this would be a really challenging stretch. What are you keeping a close eye on over the next 2 weeks as this scrappy, never say die Cardinals team goes through what is essentially a meat grinder in their schedule?
Yeah, it is. And you referenced the standings. Who would have thought that the Mets and Phillies would be where they are? It is certainly a crazy time in the National League. With the Cardinals, got to say they are kind of where I thought they would be. I think they're a 500 team, not that much better, not that much worse, and that's not anything other than a young team of untested players. These are players that have not gone 162. These are players that show a ton of promise, and I kind of look at this season. I haven't used this analogy, but it's kind of like I have a collection of baseball cards, and I just want to know which ones are going to be more valuable as the season goes along. So I'm going to watch their value go up and down. I'm looking more individually at this team. I do not expect this team to go out and win the NL Central and to go make the playoffs as a wild card or anything like that. I just want to see improvement, and I'm refreshed that there is a plan in place and there's an approach. Nor do I expect this 2026 roster to be the team that goes and makes the playoffs as I think they will in 2028. I think you're going to see some players come up and join that group, and I think you're going to see some acquisitions join that group. What we're seeing right now is the process of who's going to be on the train in 2028. So you're watching very closely to see individual performances rise and fall. You almost want some of them to fail. But to answer your question about the Pittsburgh series, I really want this starting rotation to have stability because that will help the bullpen. The bullpen is showing obviously some leakage. If the starting rotation can go deeper into games, it does preserve that bullpen a little bit more. What I mean by you want them to fail is you want some of these younger players to go through what it is like to fight through failure and to fight through slumps and to see if they can work their way back. It's fool's gold if they're sitting there just on fire for the first 3-4 months of their career. You got to see them go. We've already seen JJ go down just a touch. We're now seeing Walker go down a touch. We saw Church go down a touch. It's going to happen to all of them. But I think what you're going to see is what they're made of. And that's what I care about the most. I think the Pirates have some good arms and have some good young talent and certainly are a team to watch. I think Milwaukee will probably find their way. Cubs got off to a bad start and then got white hot. The Reds are a solid club. It's a good division. And the Cardinals are probably going to struggle to win it, to be honest with you. They're teams that just have more overall proven talent than the Cardinals do. But the way I view this team is that they took these young players, average age 26 or so, and said, go show us what you got. And you know what? We're going to allow you to do it. And you don't have to look over your shoulder in fear that you're going to be pulled back to the minors. Just go play. And that's what I want to see out of this team. But it does come back to starting pitching. And if the starting pitching fails on any team at any level, the team fails. That's the foundation of a baseball team. So you got to see that. Matthew Liberatore going 3 1/3 yesterday isn't going to cut it. Love Libby, but he's going to have to figure out a way to go a little deeper into the game. McGreevy, I thought, gave you an opportunity for a bit today, and it was good to see some of that. But the offense wasn't there. Yesterday, the offense, they had 5 home runs and lose the game. It's unheard of. Unfortunately, this is the team you're talking about. This is what you're going to see. There are going to be some times where you're glued to the TV, and there are going to be some times where you're watching it with your jaw dropping for another reason. I can't believe they just lost it in that fashion. It's just what you're going to have. This is not a consistent baseball team in terms of success. They don't have the proven track record yet.
I don't think this is something anybody in the Cardinals organization would answer directly, but do you have a sense of what their plan is with Riley O'Brien, if they plan to trade him at the deadline? Because he's a unique reliever, being 31 already, but having over 4 years of team control when the deadline arrives. Do you have any sense?
It's such a great question because I've had some friends, we've texted about this recently, and they thought it was a foregone conclusion. I was talking about buddies of mine who watch this on a daily basis. I don't see that just yet. I've not gotten an indication that it is a foregone conclusion. It makes sense though on the surface if you're talking about that. If this is the path that you're on, if you want to continue to acquire talent, I can assure you they're going to get calls about him if he keeps going at this rate. This is what we thought Jojo Romero was going to be at the trade deadline. Remember, we're all talking about him in the offseason. Like, hey, you could just hold off and trade him at the deadline. Everybody's going to want a Jojo Romero. Well, everyone's going to want a Riley O'Brien. They're going to get calls, just a matter of what your stomach is to make the deal. But this team is focused on the future, and I think it'll always be a consideration. But, boy, love Riley O'Brien. It's a tricky one because, he is, as you said, reaching that age, but he's still somebody who could bring you great value. So that's not an easy one to answer, quite honestly. And it's been a great start to the year for him. I'll give him a pass yesterday. He's been going so well that yesterday is what it is, and see if we can move forward.
This is my last question before I actually have to go do room checks and have to be the adult in the room. So I know this is harder to do from the position player side than from the pitcher side. Like we talked about the Memphis shuttle. They're going to come up and get innings. But from the position player side, like we're already seeing Sajasi getting squeezed out. Fermin doesn't get a lot of time. But you see guys like Baez, Brian Torres, Blaze Jordan has been on an absolute tear. And they're getting squeezed by guys like Ramon Urias. Like how do those guys get their opportunity? Does it just take a trade or an injury, and that's the only way we're going to see these opportunities come at the big leagues to see what they can actually do with the bat?
Yeah, it is that, because I have to think about who is going down. I mean, Urias isn't going down. So, he's there, and he's there to stay. They have first base locked up, and I like Blaze Jordan, but he's not going to play every day. I think it would take an injury to pull him up there, I would think, because he's got to play all the time, doesn't he? Unless you're just looking for a bat off the bench. Really like Baez, obviously. I mean, Baez killed it early in spring training. Baez is killing it now. Baez is going to be a factor for the St. Louis Cardinals. It's just a matter of when do you want to do it. I'm willing. The same thing goes with Crooks for me. Like and Crooks, I know I cited it this morning with Chaim. The strikeout rate I think is too high, and I think it translates to a higher strikeout rate. Plus, I don't think he's been great against lefties. You guys can crunch all the numbers. I know that you have. Baez is pretty special. Crooks is pretty special. There's others too. I'm willing to wait a little longer if I have to, again, referencing that unless it's going to completely derail the team, I'm willing to watch other players try to get it done. I guess my point is I don't think Baez is going to come in and help you win the World Series. I don't think Crooks is either. I just want them to get a little more time, a little taste of what the grind is like before they move right in and become a factor. But boy, I'm tempted on Baez. Baez is one of those guys that could come in and jumpstart a team, I think. I think he's got that kind of bat, that kind of attitude. I love the unexpected turnaround that he had last year. I don't think anybody saw that coming, that he was going to have the 25 that he had. So something has clicked with him, and he carries himself like a star. I think he has the confidence, maybe not J.J. Weatherholt level confidence, but he's pretty close based on what I've observed. So I think it'll be fun when the time does come.
Well, like, thanks for being here, Scott. So, like Gabe had referenced, my next question was going to be about Riley O'Brien, but because we're so good and our minds are connected, I'm going to move on to my next question, and it's all kind of in line with what Scott asked too, and what you were saying about Josh Baez, and I think we can all kind of tie that together. It's like Nootbaar, is another guy that is probably looking at, like, once he returns, it's going to be a showcase of such. So is he healthy? Will other contending teams, look at him as like that missing piece for their lineup and their offense? And you would have to think that potentially that like Josh Baez won't get an opportunity probably until after Nootbaar is moved on from. Is that, in your estimation, probably how you see things playing out as well?
I think so. I think it probably does take an injury. Like, they were pretty close on Crooks last night. I mean, that got to the point where they said stand by, because if the Pajes result came back bad, he was going to be in the clubhouse today. So yes, I think an injury, you could see him, and then it'd be up to him to stick. I mean, in 1985, they called up Vince Coleman and they said, "Now we're going to have you up here until we send you back." And he said, "I'm not going back." And I said, "Now Vince, this is about, you're up here because out of necessity," but he said, "I'm not going back." And he didn't, and he stayed, and the rest is history. So, it would be up to the player to do all that you can to stick, but it probably at this point does have to do with an injury or something drastic. But, I wouldn't rule it out. Wouldn't rule it out necessarily. I think it's kind of fun. I think that on the pitching side, they don't have those type of guys right now. Quinn Matthews isn't finding the strike zone well enough to warrant a call up or even in an emergency situation. Thankfully, they have Hunter Dobbins. Unfortunately, Richard Fitz goes down with an injury. They do have some other options here and there, but they're a little thin there in terms of starters. So you got to hope for the best. But if something were to happen in the outfield, I think you've got a really nice option in Baez. And as you mentioned, Jordan's had a nice start to the year, and we all know about the catchers, starting with Jimmy.
Something that we've liked to talk about as like Cardinals fans is who do you think could be an extension candidate? Do you think the Cardinals have any interest in extending any of their young pre-arbitration players, or do you think they are it's not going to happen for a couple of years because of maybe the lockout, maybe because of financial uncertainty, maybe because they're not sure who is the next core guy you want locked up for 10 years or whatever?
Yeah, the trend is to lock up these prospects and early picks like Weatherholt, and while they have not said it directly, I do believe that there's some interest there. I just, it's hard to read sometimes Bloom when he speaks publicly on our show about it. He talks in generalities, and he says that he will not talk specifically about Weatherholt. But certainly it's got to be under consideration, I would think, for multiple reasons. One, that I thought Bob Nightingale brought up a good point in his column in USA Today, where he talked about the fact that, you just want to get these guys locked in. St. Louis isn't necessarily the free agent destination that it used to be, so you want to get these guys away from the coasts and the big cities and the big money and just get them under contract. And Weatherholt certainly has shown that he's capable, even though it's only been a month, that he's capable of playing on the big stage. The other one that jumps out to me is Mason Wynn. I think that Mason Wynn would be a good candidate for that. I think the two of them actually locked in together would be a nice core for the future, and you got that defense up the middle with those two, and then you can kind of move on from there. Beyond that, there are other candidates. I'm just saying, I think that those two right there, to me, are two of the faces of the franchise moving forward. I think that the Cardinals have the resources to do something like that. I don't think they're out yet to go break the bank on a free agent, nor do they want to break out of their plan at the moment. But I think that internally, keeping those two happy and keeping them under contract would be a good move on their part.
Tom, I want to bring it back to the Gas House Gang. It's really grown quickly in such a short amount of time, and you guys have accumulated quite a few notable sponsors in that time, and one of them is Budweiser, and thanks in part to former beat writer and friend of the show here on Viva Alberto's Katie Wu. You guys famously toasted Katie on air, and now they sponsor a segment where you guys get to day drink and you get paid for it. Is that not the pinnacle of sports media consumption in your mind?
Yeah, right now I'm having a LaCroix, key lime flavored, not the same as a cold frosty one. But yeah, that was cool. I just, that was a last second thing where Katie agreed to come on to tell us that she was leaving for the Dodgers job. And I went down the street to Culinaria, the Schnucks location downtown. I got us a 6-pack of Bud. threw one over to Ranj, and we cracked one for Katie. And AB saw the video and decided let's make it a thing. So yeah, it is great. The Gas House Gang has done well, and that is a tribute to Cardinals fans. I mean, I people have been awesome talking about us, but we've been in the business for a while. Me, Chris Ranji, Matt Pauley, Mike Claiborne, Bernie Miklasz, the people that contribute to the show. We've been doing what we do for a long time. I think it's Cardinals fans told us we like this. It's the first time that KMOX has done a sports show in the middle of the day. And I think that was different for people. Like, whoa, what is this now? We're talking baseball in the noon hour on KMOX. I like it. And it's not a day game. And you have Ollie on, and you have Greg Amsinger on, and you have Bernie twice a week, and you have this guy and that guy. So that's been fun. And we don't, I'd say 90% of it is baseball, but we do other sports when it is necessary to talk hockey, basketball, football, what have you. It's been a fun show to do. And certainly fans have taken to it. Advertisers have really lined up for it, which I appreciate. And we're kind of nudging them a little bit to do a little more. Maybe we can do some remote broadcasts. I've envisioned us being out at sports bars in the middle of the day and having a good time and talking some ball. But what it really tells you is that Cardinals fans are engaged. Because they're not in the seats at Busch Stadium. I was just explaining this to somebody today walking out of the ballpark, and they said, boy, it's tough to see those empty seats. And I said, I understand that, but I will tell you, those are advance tickets. In April, those are advance tickets. There's not a lot of walk-up to Cardinals games at Busch Stadium. People don't just say, you know what, I think I'll go down to the ball game today. I mean, there are some, but not enough to make that much of an impact. Those are mostly advance tickets / season tickets. Now, I think a lot of the advance tickets in April are very iffy because of the weather, and also there was a lot of, doubt that the team was going to go in the right direction. I think now maybe things change a little bit. I think you'll see a nice turnout for the Dodgers series. I think you'll see a nice turnout as the weather gets into summer and we see what people would perceive to be more consistency. I don't think people thought that April would be that nice weather-wise. But I guess my point is, when you see the empty seats on TV, that doesn't mean that Cardinals fans are not interested. Cardinals fans are massively interested in what's going on. In fact, and to the point where they've protested, that's the whole point, is they've protested ownership and at the time John Mozeliak in saying enough, we've heard enough. We're not going to come back until you're more transparent or you change the plan or we're more excited, but we have a more entertaining product. And I do think that people are starting to feel that way about the team. I think people they've always been engaged to the tune of negativity or, downright hatred or whatever it was. At least they were still talking about the team and because they love the team and they want the team to do well. But now you're starting to hear people say, you know what, I didn't like this team for a while, but I'm kind of interested now and dare I say encouraged by the team. So I think I might go check them out. And I think you will gradually see the turnout. But the Gas House Gang's success has been a reflection of the fan base and the fact that will never die. The Cardinals fans will always be there. They always want more. They can't have enough information about their team.
Well, like you mentioned, Budweiser saw that, and hopefully they're able to see this one. Gabe, if you want to grab yours as well.
I mean, it's not Budweiser.
It's okay. It's okay.
Just we're gonna get the advertisement from Budweiser.
You know what? We're gonna try though, right? So, this one is to you, Mr. Ackerman, for the many years of service to St. Louis. The countless hours of bringing sports fans across the vast 1120 KMOX and now 104.1 FM airways as well. We here at Viva Alberto's wanted to toast to you and extend our appreciation for the years, the conversations that have been had, and will continue to be had. As a fellow showrunner, I can uniquely empathize with some of the challenges you face regularly, but knowing you do it at such a high level, live, and with such a degree of professionalism and excellence, this Bud's for you, Mr. Tom Ackermann.
Oh my gosh, guys. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And I'll say that Right back at you. You know, I was telling my daughter that I was going downstairs. I have two daughters. I have a freshman in college and a freshman in high school. And my freshman in high school said, who are you talking to tonight? And I said, Viva Alberto's. They're one of the first. I mean,
Wow.
they were going. I told her, I said, they've been going a long time, like about as old as you are. Uh,
Yeah,
Easy. So they go back, man. They're one of the OG bloggers. So
for sure.
we
And
we absolutely appreciate you.
we try to carry the torch here as much as, for those who came before us and who established a precedent and did, so many things to establish this great name. Again, we just try to continue to carry on the great name of Viva Alberto's and do everything we can. But also we're bringing it into the future a little bit with this podcast and, some of the things, the way we're writing things as well. So like, as many ways as we could possibly cover the game and bring people like yourself, Tom Ackermann, or some of the other great guests we've had on recently with Eno Saris, or, some of the other great people across the league. It's just, it really, truly, like, I always say that 10-year-old me would be doing backflips right now, just getting to be, if I could tell him that, I'm talking to all of these, incredible, amazing people. I remember back to winter warm-up last year, my first opportunity ever to get to cover winter warm-up. I was standing between Katie Wu and Derek Gould interviewing Rob Serfolio just impromptuly, and I was like, that was one of those moments where you just kind of pinch yourself and are like, oh my gosh, is this really happening? Like life actually happened in a way that, like once again, 10-year-old me would just be going crazy about. So
That's awesome, and that's you don't ever want to lose that. And I tell you, that's how I feel all the time. I mean, I really do. There are so many times where I'll go home at the end of the day and be like, did I really get to do that? I mean, I just love this job so much, and I love the business. And I grew up in St. Louis, loving the Cardinals and appreciating what they're all about because we've experienced the really, really good times, and there have been some good ones. All of us have seen it. We know what it's like, and that's why we can be tough on them sometimes because we know that we've been at the top of the mountain, and everybody wants to get back there. It's also the first time, at least for me, and probably for most of the people watching right now, that we've been through a rebuild like this. So it is a lot of fun. I appreciate you saying that. I always feel like we're all sort of in the same boat here. I might have a little more access, but as you said, I think they're doing a good job of getting people more access, of understanding that there's more than just the traditional media out there. There are a lot of people out there that are covering this team, and people are taking in the content in many different ways. This being a good example of that.
once again, that is the great Tom Ackermann. You can hear all of his shows on 1120 KMOX 104.1 FM. You can listen on the Odyssey app anywhere and hear Tom terrific on Total Information AM. The Gas House Gang and Sports on a Sunday Morning. You can follow him on X at Ackerman1120, for writer Gabe Simons, and the worldly Scott Plaza. I am your host, Jake Wood, and we will talk to you all very soon. Have a great week, St. Louis, and go Cards.